Kia ora, welcome to Under the Checkered Flag, MotoGP edition. I'm your host Kate, and we're just going to jump right in.
It is Kate, PozzA, and Kelly here this week, and we're gonna chat a little bit about some more silly season news, then discuss some testing before jumping onto our predictions, which may be interesting given the fact it is pretty much a duplicate race on what we had last weekend. But last week we learnt that David Alonso was moving to Moto 2 with CF Moto Aspar, and now we know who his teammate is going to be. His teammate will be Dani Holgado, who will be moving up from Moto 3. I am super excited for this duo and this pairing, and it'll be good to see them battling it out against each other. I'll start with Pause so Kelly has some time to get her thoughts together. But what do you think about this duo and what they'll be able to achieve in Moto 2 next year?
I'm quite excited by this lineup and just Moto 2 in general for next year with the amount of rookies and the amount of sort of experienced riders. I feel like there's a bit of a mix and just like a bit of a mix of sort of talent within that. And especially with how some of the rookies this year have adapted and have already been fighting at the front. I feel like it'll be interesting to see if we can sort of get that replicated next year. And Moto 2's just generally been one of the better classes of the three this year, so if that can continue through to next year as well, that'd be interesting.
I'm actually really excited about it. I think we all expected David to move up. That was kind of like a given. But Danny being his teammate was definitely something I was like, okay. Definitely not something I expected, and a bit, I'd say, I wouldn't say dangerous, but definitely a bold move considering they're very scrappy. And considering the fact that they're both fighting for a title right now, and then putting them as teammates next year, you know damn well it's not going to be tension, but you know they're going to be scrappy with each other, and it's going to be both terrifying and I think pretty awesome. So I'm hoping that they can work together, but I think they could create some pretty good drama.
I think, yeah, a little bit of drama and a little bit of intrigue to see who's going to come out on top of the pairing. I'm excited for it, and hopefully it's a good lineup considering CF Moto is a team that we're seeing a lot of this year, and I'd like to see some more of it just because, I really like those hot pink numbers. But the next topic I want to cover is the fact that MotoGP is going to be bringing in a radio communication system. So this will be between the race director and riders from 2025. Following on from this, they plan to roll out two-way radio systems between rider and race direction, which could begin as early as 2026. And after all of that's rolled out, there's talk about team to rider comms. One of the things I'm actually really curious about is how much it's actually going to work, considering how deathly loud these motorcycles are. Like, I'm convinced that the riders don't even have enough time to hear themselves think. But what are your thoughts, yes or no, on radio communications?
I I think yes, to be honest. I've wanted something like this for a long time. You always see like the messages pop up on the dashboard like this rider's out, you have a long lap penalty, this, that, the other, and like that's fine. But I feel like not even for entertainment, but like I think it's gonna be so much more beneficial for the riders as well to just have it in their ear and be told what's going on and be able to relay back to the team what's going on with the bike. The tires are cooked, I'm having a mechanical. I think for safety is so much better, and I feel like the riders are going to like it a little bit more as well. Um, yeah, I think this is a huge jump and a positive one as well. But yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, in the, I'm sort of having like a middle stance on this. I feel like in some ways it'll work, but I feel like in others it won't really work. Um, my main thought is I just don't see how the rider's gonna be able to communicate on pretty much all of the tracks with just how much they're having to do and like concentrate. And also feel like one of the big differences is they don't have onboard cameras for all the competitors like they do in F1. So it'll be just that little bit harder to tell if you're talking to a rider in the middle of a corner, and just sort of that type of thing. I feel like it'll be a bit hard to work around, but I feel like it's mainly the race control to rider communication that I'm most happy about, because I feel like that could actually be quite beneficial to safety.
Yeah, I agree with some of that from both of you. I'm totally open to race direction and rider comms purely for the safety aspect and having, them get instant communications, a red or yellow flag, I think would be super beneficial. I don't like the idea of team to rider communications because I guess the way I look at it is I get to watch someone go out there and literally ride their motorcycle, and there's so very little else influencing them while having so much influencing them. It's interesting that they get to make their own mistakes like Martine did last weekend without, the team saying, oh, the rain's going to be stopping in this amount of time, don't come in. I guess I just quite enjoy the drama of just the riders being able to stuff up. So, for those of you who don't know, I am a huge fan of testing and I follow testing quite religiously. Kelly and PozzA don't, so they've not joined me for this little segment, but I'm just going to give you a very, very brief summary of what happened at the testing on Monday after the San Marino Grand Prix. To start with, Honda brought an updated aerodynamic package. Its biggest, I suppose, identifier is the updated side fairing. It looks so incredibly similar to what Ducati have with a downwash duct setting in the front and side effect fairings sitting just behind. It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out because not only were the side fairings updated, there's also an updated set of side pod wings, but the top of their aerodynamic package remains the same. That's not the only upgrades that Honda brought. They also brought a different swing arm, and it sounds like a new engine. One thing that should be noted is that the Honda guys said that they were a bit disappointed by what Honda brought and they were expecting a bit more. So that doesn't bode overly well for, you know, the rest of the season and Honda's development as a whole. Ducati, on the other hand, brought a new chassis for Pecco Bagnaia to try. It does also sound like they've also made the first step towards their 2025 engine, which is quite terrifying considering how far ahead they are. Now, Aprilia is quite a curious one because obviously they've only got one rider staying. Yes, you could argue that Alicia Spargaro should be testing, but you need to remember that he's about to jump ship to Honda as a test rider. So Aprilia were severely limited in the amount of track time that they could get. So Raul Fernandez said that he basically didn't go out on the same bike twice. He was constantly trying new parts, constantly trying new things, new setups. And so it will be quite hard to tell what, if anything, Aprilia got out of this session. He did say that he had his first taste of Aprilia's under seat diffuser, and what was really interesting to me is that he also had his RSGP 23 that he used for the first half of the season. This will be the first time he's been able to test the 23 next to the 24, and it'll be really interesting what feedback he's able to give to the riders. As for Yamaha, we didn't really hear much out of their camp, so I am going to do some more deep diving. If you've got any questions on them, I will happily answer them. But for KTM, the final one I'll talk about is the only noticeable differences that I could see is the fact that they had a different tail unit, which we know that KTM loves the aerodynamics, and I will throw some photos up on screen if you're watching the video version. But they did also have a new top exhaust system. So those are just my really quick summary facts of the San Marino test. But let's move on to predictions because it could be really interesting what we've got here. And I'm very, very curious. I'll start with my Moto 3 predictions. And in P3, I have Tayo Furusato. I think he's going to do super, super well because he seems to be gaining more confidence as the season goes on. P2, I've got Ivan Artola just based on his performance from last week. And in P1, I have Angel Piqueras. I mean, he won from a double long lap penalty and he won pretty confidently. So I think he's definitely going to take it. As a reserve, I have Dani Holgado. What about you, Kelly?
Well, unlike you, unfortunately, I don't have the faith in Angel Piqueras to win a race cleanly. So, I have David Alonso as my winner. I mean, I understand he did have a bit of a hard time in the last race, but every championship leader or winner has had a bit of a howler. So that was just his howler of the year. And I fully and firmly believe that he will do better this race. So I have him as P1. I still have Vire P2 because I can't let him go. Yeah, it really hurts. It really does. But I believe like he'll come back. That's probably very bad delusion, but I'll try my best. I have Jose Antonio Rueda in third because even though he did have a knockdown, um, even though he did have a knockdown last race, I think because he won the race before, I genuinely feel like he has bounded back a lot since the start of the season, and I feel like he's genuinely strong. And then as my reserve, I have Ivan Artola because he's solid, he's been getting some good points, and I think he's on for a good like fourth to fifth place finish this weekend.
Well, Poz has something in the middle of both of us. He has Via, but only as a reserve. In P3, he has Piqueras, P2, Ivan Ortola, and P1, same as you, Kelly, he has gone with David Alonso. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, I'm hoping I'm right because I am so far behind both of you by about 40 points in the prediction championship. So I need Piqueras to make a really good race for me. Moving on to Moto 2, we'll start with Poz. He has Tony Arbolino as his reserve. P3, Alonso Lopez. P2, Ayagura. And P1, Celestino Vietti. Completely different with the exception of P2 to mine. In reserve, we do match there as well. We have Tony Arbolino. I think we're both not quite confident enough to have him on the podium yet. In P3, I have Manu Gonzalez. P2, Ayagura. And P1, I've got to go with Aaron Canet. I'm confident he can get his second win soon. Totally confident. Not at all running on copium. But your Moto 2?
Well, unlike you again, I don't have the faith in I don't have the faith in Aaron Canet at all because he hasn't even made an appearance on mine. In P1 I have Jake Dixon. Last race he did have a bit of a howler qualifying, but he did build that back up really, really well. He's been so fast the last couple of races, and I do have faith that he'll get another win. It's unfortunate that he won't get a MotoGP ride now, but like Jesus, that guy is fast. So I have him P1. I have Alonso Lopez P2. Might be copium, might not be copium. When he doesn't cook his tires, the guy is speedy. So let's just say I'm hoping he doesn't destroy his tires. Or crash. But I don't think he does that as often as cook his tires. I have faith he won't do either. I have Ayagura third. Um, I don't think I have really a reason for this. It's just kind of like a gut feeling. I feel like he won't win, but he'll get a podium, and I'm happy with that. And then, same as you and Paz, I have Tony Arbolino as reserve. He's been fast, very, very fast, but I don't have enough faith that he'll keep that like consistently yet. So I'm just hoping this weekend he can get some good points.
I like how the three of us just don't have that faith in Arbolino yet, even though he's clearly doing the reverse of what he normally does, and that's, actually doing well in the second half of the season. But my MotoGP sprint predictions. In my reserve spot, I have Marc Marquez in P3. I have Enea Bastianini. P2, I have Pecco Bagnaia, and in P1, I'm going with Jorge Martin. I think the sprint, he's still going to be super strong. I do think he's going to qualify a little bit better this week. I don't think he's going to get as incredible as the start, but we'll only wait and see. PozzA has gone with Morbidelli as his reserve, Marc Marquez in P3, Jorge Martin in P2, and Pecco Bagnaia in P1. Similar to mine, but not quite. What are yours?
Mine just haven't really changed at all. They never like my ones for MotoGP Sprint never change. P1 I have actually switched it around to Jorge Martin. I know he did have a bit of a howler like last feature race, but it wasn't really his fault. And he did win the sprint race there, so I think he can do it again. I have Pecco Bagnaia, P2. I know he's been how could you say it? Bottling his sprints recently, but I have the faith that he'll come back from that. Or maybe it's really bad delusion. I have Marc Marquez P3 because he's been so quick the last couple of weekends, and it's definitely making me delusional. I'll admit that straight out. And then as my reserve, I have Enea Bastianini. He's been quick. There's no problems, and yeah, I have faith.
Can you just
Moving on to GP race. I have changed my winner around, and it's definitely copium, I'd say. But I have Marquez P1 just because of his last two straight wins. I've been really happy over it, and it's yeah probably copium, but I'm happy if it doesn't work out for me. I have Pecco Bagnaia P2. The guy's quick, no problems. I feel he can get a solid podium and good championship points. Right behind him, I have the other championship contender, which is Jorge Martin. I feel like Martin is going to end up bottling the lead somehow and end up back in the podium, just like on the podium, but not a win. That's how I feel like it's gonna go. And then as my reserve, once again, an A Bastianini goes quick, no problems. He could get me some good points.
Yeah, I've got to say, I think it's copium, Mark P1 there, because unless it rains or, slight drizzle, I just think that Pecco's going to beat him straight up, because I've got Pecco and P1 for my predictions. I just think he was still injured last weekend, so I think that quite affected his results. In P2, I have Enea Bastianini. I'm not too sure why. I'm calling it a gut feeling, but given how far behind I am, my gut feelings probably can't be trusted. P3, I have Jorge Martin, and as a reserve, I have Marco Bezzecchi. And Pos, his Grand Prix predictions are as follows. He has Jorge Martin winning the Grand Prix, Pecco Bagnaia in P2, and Marc Marquez in P3, with Enea Bastianini as his reserve. It's going to be so interesting to see because they've all gone very similar, but quite different in the scheme of things. But only time will tell, and I am desperately hopeful that I will cling on to some championship points. As always, thank you so much for listening. We'd be really keen to hear of anything that you wanted us to talk about, but we are extremely mindful that we are about to come into two triple headers and the end of the season. It's about to be some seriously stressful weekends for the riders and teams and us ourselves as podcast hosts because we'll be watching the races, digesting them, reviewing them, and predicting for the next race all in one sitting. We will try and keep it short and sharp as we always do. But as always, thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this, and we will talk to you next week.